See you in a bit. Thank you. Salam sejahtera, anda sedang menyaksikan Niaga AWANI bersama saya Rozman. Seperti biasa jam ini kami akan bawakan pelbagai rangkuman berita niaga ekonomi dari peringkat tempatan hinggalah ke peringkat antarabangsa. Dan saya akan mulakan dengan perkembangan ini terlebih dahulu. Tabung Kewangan Antarabangsa IMF mengekalkan unjuran pertumbuhan keluaran dalam negara kasar KDNK sebenar Malaysia pada kadar 4.5% bagi 2025 dan 4.0% pada 2026. Unjuran itu dinyatakan IMF dalam kemas kini tinjauan ekonomi dunia WEO edisi Oktober 2025 bertajuk Global Economy in Flux Prospects Remain Dim yang diterbitkan pada Selasa. Katanya bagi pasaran sedang pesat membangun dan ekonomi membangun, pertumbuhan dijangka menyederhana kepada 4.2% pada 2025 dan 4.0% pada 2026 daripada 4.3% pada 2024. Menurutnya, unjuran itu hampir tidak berubah berbanding kemas kini WEO edisi Julai dan merupakan semakan menaik kumulatif sebanyak 0.6% berbanding WEO April 2025. Angka ini lebih rendah sebanyak 0.2% secara kumulatif berbanding unjuran pada Oktober 2024 dengan negara membangun berpendapatan rendah mengalami semakan menurun yang lebih besar berbanding negara berpendapatan sederhana, kata IMF. Menurutnya, bagi rantau Asia yang sedang pesat membangun dan membangun, pertumbuhan dijangka menyusut daripada 5.3% pada 2024 kepada 5.2% pada 2025 dan seterusnya kepada 4.7% pada 2026. Katanya bagi beberapa negara di rantau ini, terutamanya di ASEAN, iaitu antara yang paling terkesan, evolusi unjuran pertumbuhan sebahagian besarnya mencerminkan kadar tarif efektif yang dikenakan. Tambahnya di China, unjuran pertumbuhan KDNK 2025 disemak turun sebanyak 0.6% dalam WEO April 2025 susulan peningkatan ketegangan perdagangan antara China dan Amerika Syarikat. Kemudiannya disemak naik 0.8% dalam kemas kini WEO Julai selepas keputusan menghentikan menaikkan tarif pada Mei. Menurut IMF, hasil yang lebih kukuh berbanding jangkaan dalam tempoh beberapa suku yang lepas mencerminkan pelaksanaan awal dalam perdagangan antarabangsa serta penggunaan domestik yang kekal teguh. Ini didorong oleh pengembangan fiskal pada 2025 yang berjaya meimbangi tekanan daripada ketidaktentuan dan tarif yang tinggi. Jangkaan terhadap trend penyusutan hutang kerajaan secara menyeluruh dan keluaran dalam negara kasar KDNK yang menghampiri paras media negara yang mempunyai penarafan kredit setaraf berpotensi meningkatkan penarafan berdaulat Malaysia pada BBB+. Menurut Fitch Rating, selain itu strategi penyatuan fiskal yang teguh serta prospek pertumbuhan ekonomi yang lebih baik turut mengukuhkan lagi jangkaan ini. Dalam nota penyelidikannya, Fitch berkata hutang kerajaan semakin berkurangan secara beransur-ansur tetapi masih melepasi paras median bagi negara berdaulat kategori BBB yang diberi penarafan oleh Fitch iaitu sebanyak 58% pada 2025. Pengarah bersekutu dan penganalisis kedaulatan Fitch Ratings, Kathleen Cheng berkata, Belanjawan terkini mengukuhkan lagi komitmen terhadap konsolidasi fiskal secara berperingkat dengan sasaran defisit sebanyak 3.5% daripada KDNK pada 2026 iaitu lebih rendah daripada unjuran terdahulu agensi berkenaan iaitu 3.6%. Jelasnya, Belanjawan berkenaan mengulangi sasaran jangka sederhana untuk mengurangkan defisit kepada 3% daripada KDNK walaupun tiada tempoh masa khusus dinyatakan. Malah, dalam kerangka fiskal jangka sederhana, kerajaan menjangka purata defisit sebanyak 3.2% daripada KDNK bagi 2026 hingga 2028. Malah, dalam kerangka fiskal jangka sederhana, kerajaan menjangka purata defisit sebanyak 3.2% daripada KDNK bagi 2026 hingga 2028 yang memberi gambaran defisit kira-kira 3% menjelang 2028 sekiranya langkah konsolidasi diteruskan pada kadar semasa. Menurut Chen, kerajaan terus melaksanakan rasionalisasi subsidi dengan anggaran penjimatan tahunan sebanyak 15.5 bilion ringgit iaitu kira-kira 0.8% daripada KDNK 2025. Menurutnya, sebahagian besar daripada penjimatan ini akan disalurkan kepada kebajikan masyarakat dengan jumlah perbelanjaan diunjurkan meningkat sebanyak 1.7%. Pada masa sama, sasaran subsidi petrol RON95 yang diumumkan baru-baru ini dijangka menghasilkan penjimatan yang lebih kecil daripada subsidi diesel yang disasarkan. In this post-Belanjawan 2026 discussion, we take a closer look at how the government plans to strengthen revenue through better governance and enforcement rather than introducing new taxes, and whether this approach is sustainable in the long run. Khaleeda Singh, Council Member of the Chartered Tax Institute of Malaysia CTIM, joined us on the line to share his insight on Malaysia's tax reform priorities and how to build a system that is fair, simple and growth-friendly. I want to say thank you very much, Khaleeda, for joining me. Definitely, talking about post-Belanjawan 2026, from a tax dimension, the government plans to boost revenue through better governance and enforcement rather than the new taxes. Is this a sustainable approach in the long term, or what's your thought on this?
Hi, Nina. Thank you so much for inviting me to share my thoughts. And I think at this juncture, at this stage, we've seen so many new taxes and the introduction of invoicing coming in over the last couple of years, and these new taxes and the implementation of them obviously causes some level or some measure of disruption and disturbances to taxpayers and to businesses as well. So at this juncture, it is not obviously a good idea to look at introducing any additional taxes. What is required is some measure, some sort of stability and some consolidation. And, the low-hanging fruits as far as taxation is concerned have already been introduced. So it's about enforcement, about ensuring that, there is proper fiscal, spending as well. And in terms of, the way going forward, at some point in time, of course, when you talk about increasing of efficiency, administrative efficiency, etc., this tends to plateau or tends to sort of flatten after a number of years. So in the long run, Malaysia will certainly need to broaden its tax base, and possibly through some consumption and environmental taxes, which may be the way to go forward in future. To ensure revenue resilience. So at this point in time, I think it's an opportune time to look at consolidating, to look at reaping the benefits of all the the taxes that have been implemented. Invoicing has been rolled out. A lot of backlash has been received by the government in the past, but I think people are beginning to see the benefits of invoicing. So I think the benefits of this should start coming in terms of higher tax collections in the coming years, starting from 2026.
And also the government continues with targeted subsidies instead of blanket assistance. How does this align with the broader goal of fairness and efficiency in the fiscal management?
I think that's the whole idea, to basically look at fiscal fairness and efficiency as well. Certainly by channeling support to lower-income households and productive sectors, the government can contain spending while improving equity as well. But of course, implementation is to be transparent and data-driven to build and to maintain public trust. And I think over time, Malaysia should also integrate targeted subsidies with a more progressive framework to balance redistribution and growth. As it is, the current overall subsidy rationalization is supposed to, give rise to about 15.5 billion of savings, as mentioned by the Prime Minister during the budget speech as well, which is a huge amount of savings that can be used to enhance social welfare, to increase allocation, to ease the cost of living for the people that really need it. And investing in better infrastructure that benefits Malaysia, and of course channel the funds to rakyat-based focused initiatives and projects. And I think going forward, there would be probably the scope of the rationalization that can be done can be quite wide. And I'm saying it because invoicing, once fully implemented, it would basically have the details of all taxpayers. I mean, above the age of 18, everybody is supposed to have a tin. So even if you go to the Kedai chain and you want to buy the cooking oil, which, you know, there's some sort of subsidy there as well, it can be targeted based on the profile of the taxpayer, and these details would be there in the invoicing system. So I think there is avenue with all the digitalization that has taken place, invoicing that has been put in. There's avenue for better rollout of this subsidy regionalization programs as well.
And the budget outlined allocations for STR Bantuan Cash Aid, civil servant support, and adjustment for inflation pressure. What's your thought on this support?
Well, I think, of course, the continuation of the Sumbangan Tunai Rama and cost of living aids, it shows the sensitivity of the government to household struggles. And, for many low to middle income families, these direct transfers provide some short-term relief amidst the rising prices and subsidy rationalization. The support for civil servants, including adjustments and allowances, helps to sustain morale and also at least maintain, if not improve, the purchasing power. But having said that, I think such aids should and will only remain temporary cushioning tools, right? They're not substitutes for long-term reforms in wage policies, productivity, and affordable essentials. I think one thing that perhaps could have been added in the budget would be things like, maybe a comprehensive cost of living roadmap that is linked to wage growth. So while Budget 2026 handles fiscal consolidation well, I think it lacks a clear long-term plan to align wages with inflation and productivity. So some sort of a structured approach, including wage subsidies for key sectors, right? And then, giving some sort of incentives to employers that are playing their part in providing fair, fair pay and fair wages to the employees. This would ensure that nations can keep up with rising costs sustainably, not just through aid.
And there was also no mention on GST in this budget. We can see that. But many experts argue Malaysia needs a broader consumption tax to sustain revenue. What's your professional view? Is it the right time to introduce it, and under what conditions?
Well, I think the GST question is always there. And, I would call it a $20 billion question, because I think, if I'm mistaken, that's the kind of shortfall that we currently have without the introduction of, without having GST in place. But so it remains the most efficient tool for broad-based revenue generation. And it may be, sensitive for a number of reasons, but a well-designed GST with maybe a lower initial rate and a strong targeted compensation for low-income groups could actually balance the fiscal needs of the government with social fairness as well. And maybe this is not the opportune time, maybe it's not the right time, but it could be something that we looked at once invoicing has been rolled out fully, and maybe there is inflation stability and public readiness as well. And as far as invoicing is concerned, I understand and I know that the invoicing system, or the invoicing itself, was originally designed to also accommodate for GST if there's a need for that. But I think if you go back again, and I've mentioned this a few times in my other discussions as well, when the budget was announced last year, prior to that, there was a statement by the Prime Minister that GST will probably be put on hold until the minimum wage levels rise to, about 4K or 3,500 to 4,000 ringgit. But that's going to be a long time down the road now. But maybe there's a need for them to review this on a continuous basis and look at public readiness, look at disseminating information and knowledge to the public out there, to the right channels, that it's perhaps something that is needed by the country, and it's not, as bad as it might have been pictured to be. So maybe it's something that is surely there in the pipeline, but it's a question of time.
Okay. Balance of 2 minutes, maybe Havinder share with us, as Malaysia moves toward a low carbon economy, how ready is our tax system to integrate carbon taxes or green initiative without burdening industries?
Well, the carbon tax, moving to carbon tax is a bit of a shift, right, from the policy perspective. Never really had anything along those lines in the past. So our tax system is gradually aligning with sustainability goals, but readiness for carbon tax is really still in its infancy. Most people don't even know what it entails. So at the moment, the phased approach, starting with voluntary carbon markets, emissions reporting, targeted green incentives is prudent. And the fact that it's being also rolled out in phases with the iron and steel energy sectors initially, I think that's a good move. So initially, a modest carbon tax can be introduced without shocking industries. And of course, coordination between the fiscal and environmental agencies will be quite key as well.
Okay.
And many export-oriented industries, if I may just add, especially energy-intensive and the E&E sectors, they can be quite price-sensitive, and a carbon tax may actually erode global competitiveness if the peers do not match it, or if there are no border adjustments. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done to make it work.
To make it also remains fair, simple, and also growth-friendly in the future. I want to say thank you very much, Havinder Singh, for helping us understand post-Belanjawan 2026 from the tax reform dimension. Hopefully, we can talk in the future, and definitely all of our future discussion here will be uploaded within astro.com and across all over social media platform. All right.
Terlepas menyaksikan pembentangan Belanjawan 2026, kalkulator Belanjawan 2026 dan Astro AWANI akan membantu senaraikan apa faedah dan manfaat yang anda dapat. Layari astroawani.com sekarang untuk mengetahui info berkaitan Belanjawan 2026, juga di saluran 501, aplikasi Astro AWANI dan di semua platform media sosial.
Saluran 100 kembali. Yo, what's up? Y'all got a problem? Dengan lebih banyak jenaka untuk seisi keluarga.
I rasa kita ada masalah.
Apa? Bukan dia tak ada. Are you kidding? Nikmati blockbuster hebat. Hiburan yang menerbitkan kegembiraan.
Kamu tu nelayan.
Hah? Aku nelayan?
Awak sembang kan?
Komedi tempatan.
E to the D to the N to the A.
Sitcom retro.
It makes me sick.
Filem animasi yang menggelitik jiwa. Laugh Out Loud di saluran 100. Stream bila-bila masa, di mana jua, sehingga 4 peranti.
Uniform Tentera Darat Malaysia TADM bagi peserta program latihan khidmat negara tidak seharusnya menjadi isu hangat.
Jenayah penipuan pelaburan mencatatkan jumlah kerugian tertinggi pada tahun ini setakat 2 Februari lalu.
Kementerian Pendidikan memandang serius isu peningkatan trend penggunaan rokok elektronik.
Lembaga Lebuh Raya Malaysia LLM memperluaskan larangan kenderaan berat memasuki lebuh raya pada waktu puncak di beberapa jajaran terpilih di sekitar Lembah Kelam.
Tariffs on imports of products from China reaching up to 145%.
Tariffs on the rest of the world are sitting at 10%, with the potential for reciprocal tariffs to be reimposed within 90 days.
Kunjungan rasmi Presiden China ke Malaysia ini menunjukkan komitmen kedua-dua negara untuk meningkatkan hubungan diplomatik ke tahap yang lebih strategik.
Di dalam setiap berita yang dibawa, konteks amat penting. Kami sentiasa membawakan yang tergempar dan terkini. Pastikan Astro AWANI menjadi pilihan anda, tidak kira di mana sahaja anda berada.
Belanjawan 2026 was tabled amid growing in global momentum for digital asset regulation and institutional adoption. Yet Malaysia's budget speech made no direct mention of digital assets, crypto taxation or blockchain infrastructure incentive. Despite the sector's estimate 1.4 billion ringgit in local trading volume in 2024 and increasing institutional interest, the omission raises question: is Malaysia missing a strategic opportunity to position itself as a regional digital asset hub? Are institutional players still left in regulatory limbo? Joining us to unpack this is Aaron Tang, General Manager for APAC at Uno Malaysia, one of the country's leading digital asset platforms. I want to say thank you very much, Aaron. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Thank you for having me, Nina.
No worries. From your view, does Belanjawan 2026 do enough to provide the regulatory certainty institution need to allocate to digital assets in Malaysia? If not, what is missing?
I think Belanjawan 2026 was very, very interesting, especially there are actually some mentions of digital assets. For example, if you talk about the Labuan IBFC, so the Labuan International Business Financial Center, there was talk about making it into a digital Islamic finance hub, talking about global sukuk initiatives, ability to launch sukuk and be traded on digital asset exchanges. Now, I think that's to my knowledge, the one mention of digital assets. However, I think in terms of the other things that it's not so much missing from budget 2026 as a lot of these initiatives have already been announced. So, for example, earlier this year, PMX has mentioned about things like the Digital Asset Innovation Hub, things like the desire to make Malaysia a blockchain hub and so on. So in terms of the budget 2026 itself, perhaps it does not go so much into the details of digital assets there, but definitely some of the programs, some of the initiatives are already in the planning, and we wait with bated breath to see what will come out from these initiatives.
And one practical driver of institutional adoption is tax treatment. What targeted tax reform, or we can say this is one of the budget, we can say tax and also a lot of things that was focused. And then examples of capital gains, corporate tax treatment of crypto holdings or VAT, SSC treatment. Would most salary institution putting digital assets on their balance sheets? What's your POV?
Yeah, so the good thing is we already have quite a good certainty in this area, even though not specifically mentioned in budget 2026, right? But we recently had our own institutional digital asset conference about a few weeks back. And actually, most of these items that you've mentioned, there's already certainty. So that's a really good step for Malaysia. I'll give you some examples. So it's very clear that Malaysia does not currently impose capital gains tax, CGT, on digital assets. So basically companies or individuals who hold digital assets, they are able to hold it for investment and not pay tax on those gains. Now, there's also clarity in terms of trading activity. So for example, if people are actively trading digital assets, then of course that falls into the category of income, and then people will be able to be taxed on that. So I think there is already guidance. All the accountants, the consultants in this country, many are actually very, very well aware of this tax treatment for digital assets. And I think perhaps we have not been that loud enough, or we have not shared enough in terms of the awareness and the education of that matter. But definitely, if companies want to hold digital assets today, whether for investment or whether for active trading, the institutional regulation guidelines, they are already in place.
And the governments often weigh incentives against financial integrity risks. What incentive structure would you propose that both attracts institutional custody or trading businesses to Malaysia and reassures regulators about AML or CFT and custody safety?
I think it's always important to have a balanced approach. So we're talking about balancing something that is new and innovative, but anything new and innovative definitely comes with risk, right? So I think Malaysia has gone about it in quite the right way, in terms of we are already announcing several of these sandboxes and initiatives. So something that I've mentioned earlier in terms of Bank Negara Malaysia launching their Digital Asset Innovation Hub, And then I think the other regulatory bodies like the Securities Commission, MDEC are also very, very active in the space to try and encourage more and more innovation. So SC also has their own sandbox and so on. So I think one of the critical things is to encourage more participation into these sandboxes. And I think sandboxes are really good because they allow you to do innovation and prove something before you actually take on, for example, a lot of investment and a lot of costs in some of the supporting areas. I think some of the other interesting things that could encourage this kind of innovation. We've seen Malaysia do very well before in offering tax breaks, tax incentives to companies who decide to launch their products or decide to move their headquarters to Malaysia. So I think that's always very, very, very good for companies. And I think lastly, in terms of what do you call that? In terms of building up the local ecosystem. So, we do need to continue to have highly talented, highly technical people. So I think continued engagement with education, education bodies, for example, universities and so on. Also grants in terms of research that will also help the ecosystem to continue to develop talent.
Right, talking about the ecosystem, we need the right framework, and Belanjawan 2026 continues to outcome-based incentive frameworks for high-value industries. How could an outcome-based incentive be structured specifically for blockchain developers, node operators, or Web3 infrastructure to boost even more R&D and jobs without encouraging low-quality token launches?
Yeah, I think a couple of ideas. So for example, some incentives could be milestone-based grants. So for example, we launch a project, we need to achieve X target, Y target. That could be encouraging for some of the local entrepreneurs. Something I mentioned about, don't want to keep saying it, but corporate tax incentives. So for example, a pioneer project may be able to have 5 years of preferred tax treatment, or it maybe even other tax incentives. I think the important thing to mention is that many of these discussions are already happening. So I think about 2 weeks back, I was also sitting together with some of our industry partners. We were discussing with some of the ministry players and also a lot of the industry partners in terms of what can we do, what are we looking ahead for the roadmap for the national blockchain. So I think a lot of these are underway, and we of course continue to be very, very supported and wait to see what happens.
And this is a very exciting journey, and definitely it could not happen without collaborations and cooperation from every stakeholder, especially from the public-private. And for Malaysia to be a regional hub, a reliable custody and settlement infrastructure are critical. What public-private steps, regulatory sandboxes, as you mentioned earlier, co-founded custody labs, industry standards, would you like to see in the Belanjawan or follow-up policies actions?
Yeah, I think some of these actions, they don't have to specifically be mentioned in Belanjawan, given that these are basically industry initiatives together with the regulators, right? So in our dealing with the regulators, they have been very, very encouraging to ask us, as an industry, you have to work together. It's not just like competing with each other. Competition is there, but I think the collaboration, especially for a new industry like blockchain, digital assets, and so on, the collaboration between industry players is very, very important. So I'll give you an example. For example, in terms of the anti-money laundering or counter financing of terrorism kind of guidelines, the regulators may be able to give us a template, or they'll give us a guideline of expectations, right? But that itself is based on principles. So in terms of best practices, how does the industry actually implement these practices? A lot of that can happen between, say, an industry association and so on. So we've done, for example, we have an industry association. Our industry association has a working group between the compliance officers. And I think that's a very, very good example of how both private institutions can also work together as a team and also work together with regulators.
And that is from the public-private partnerships and even custody infrastructure. And also, we want to take the whole chain is safe, even from the provider until the consumer, and financial inclusion and consumer protection especially. One argument for national encouragement of digital asset is financial inclusion and innovation. How should the budget balance measures that encourage retail access with consumer protection, education, disclosure, dispute resolution, so Malaysia can avoid past crypto markets harms?
Yeah, a couple of initiatives are already being discussed with the regulators, with the Securities Commission at the moment. So I think they've recently launched a 2.0 guidelines for digital asset exchanges. And I think the industry is still discussing in terms of what the regulator is asking. But the Securities Commission is basically trying to help the sector grow up, right? Become stronger in terms of governance, in terms of customer safety, in terms of making sure that this industry continues to thrive and be very, very attractive. I'll talk about some of the things that have been mentioned by the regulator. So in terms of digital asset coin listings today in Malaysia, we only have 22. But moving forward, say, I believe sometime next year, when there is ability for digital asset exchanges themselves to be a bit more flexible in terms of the digital assets that they can list, I think this will be very, very attractive for the digital asset exchanges. I think consumers will also have more choices. However, of course, we have to make sure that the consumers are protected. So in terms of some of the proposals, there are things that we have to have stricter standards in terms of custody, stricter standards in terms of our operations. So I think these are already being discussed at the moment. And I think it's very encouraging that the regulator is wanting us to move forward.
All right, and probably our last question to close our discussion. Should budget funds be allocated for national crypto literacy campaigns or protected investors compensation schemes?
I mean, in an ideal world, Nina, we would have both. We would have, a lot of education. We would have compensation schemes. However, budget is budget. It's using a limited amount of funds. So I think what industry players like ourselves can do, industry players, regardless of what's mentioned in the budget, right? What industry players like ourselves can do, we can also put a lot of investment into helping educate our customers. So I'll give a worrying piece of statistic is that I think millions or hundreds of millions are lost to scams, and a lot of these times these scams are in the digital asset. They call it digital asset, but it's not even maybe digital asset. Maybe it's an impersonation scam or so on. So I think industry players like ourselves, we need to continue to educate the public, and I think we should be helping to put some of our efforts and perhaps even some of our funds to work together to educate people more.
All right, thank you very much for joining us this morning and helping us to understand one of the excerpts from Belanjawan 2026 and how can we give further focus on the digital asset and what are the required environment that we need to build the whole ecosystems from below to upper. And again, I would say thank you very much to our guest, Aaron Tang, General Manager APAC of Luno Malaysia. And that is the segment for Belanjawan 2026. And right after this, we're going to move on to AWANI International.
Terlepas menyaksikan pembentangan Belanjawan 2026, kalkulator Belanjawan 2026 dan Astro AWANI akan membantu senaraikan apa faedah dan manfaat yang anda dapat. Layari astroawani.com sekarang untuk mengetahui info berkaitan Belanjawan 2026 juga di saluran 501, aplikasi Astro AWANI dan di semua platform media sosial.
Wall Street ended mixed on Tuesday, October 14, as investors digested mostly positive quarterly results from big U.S. banks, comments from Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, and an ongoing U.S.-China trade war. A slew of major lenders reported solid results on strong performance in the investment banking segment, helping the S&P 500 banking index rally.
Wells Fargo surged and was on track for its best day in 6 months, and Citigroup also jumped after both lenders beat estimates for third quarter profit. JP Morgan Chase raised its full-year forecast for net interest income, and Goldman Sachs beat Wall Street expectations for quarterly profit. However, shares of JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs, which have outperformed most rivals this year, both fell. BlackRock's assets under management hit a record $13.46 trillion, lifting its shares.
NASDAQ down a little bit, which suggests this is moving away from the tech trade and maybe more towards, industrials. But also, the last time I looked, the Russell 2000 was also up a lot. So small cap stocks. So investors, on the one hand, they seem to be more in looking for safer kinds of stocks. So moving away from tech, moving away from the higher volatility names to lower volatility names. But at the same time, they're also looking at the small cap stocks. So it's a little bit of a bifurcated market.
The S&P 500 moved lower after US President Donald Trump said Washington was considering terminating some trade ties with China, including in relation to cooking oil. That came after the two countries began charging additional port fees on ocean shipping firms that move everything from holiday toys to crude oil. Global equities were shaken on Friday, October 10, after Trump threatened 100% tariffs on Chinese goods after Beijing imposed controls on the export of rare earth minerals, although he softened his tone over the weekend.
The US labour market remained mild in its low firing doldrums through September, though the economy may be on a somewhat firmer trajectory than expected, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said on Tuesday. Powell also noted that policymakers will take a meeting-by-meeting approach to interest rate cuts as they balance job market's weakness with above-target inflation.
Powell, in remarks to a National Association for Businesses Economics conference in Philadelphia, acknowledged the economic dilemma that has split U.S. central bank officials almost evenly among those concerned most about still high and potentially rising inflation and those worried the labour market may be facing a fast slide downward. A newly added complication, Powell said, is that recent data on economic activity has been stronger than expected, but that hasn't yet translated into renewed hiring strength.
Based on the data we do have, it's fair to say that the outlook for employment and inflation does not appear to have changed much since our September meeting 4 weeks ago. Data available prior to the shutdown, however, show that growth in economic activity may be on a somewhat firmer trajectory than expected. While the unemployment rate remained low through August, payroll gains have slowed sharply, likely in part due to a decline in labor force growth due to lower immigration and lower labor force participation. In this less dynamic and somewhat softer labor market, the downside risks to employment appear to have risen. While official employment data for September are delayed, available evidence suggests that both layoffs and hiring remain low, and that both households' perceptions of job availability and firms' perceptions of hiring difficulty continue their downward trajectories.
The analysis for now will be done in the absence of official data largely suspended by the U.S. government shutdown. Powell said he felt there was adequate insight for the Fed's coming October 28-29 meeting, but that will start to miss that data, particularly October data, if the shutdown persists. But for the time being, Powell said there is a broad enough array of public and private information to make a policy judgment, with the Bureau of Labor Statistics recently told by the Trump administration that it could release its Consumer Price Index report for September. It is now due to be published on October 24th, ahead of the Fed's next policy meeting. His remarks did not change the near-anonymous consensus among investors that the Fed would cut its policy rate by another 0.25 percentage point in 2 weeks.
US President Donald Trump said on Tuesday, October 14, Washington was considering terminating some trade ties with China, including in relation to cooking oil. Trump wrote on social media saying he believes that China purposely not buying their soybeans and causing difficulty for farmers is an economically hostile act.
Trump added that US is considering terminating business with China having to do with cooking oil and other elements of trade as retribution. China has sharply reduced US soybean purchases, which Trump has called a negotiation tactic. Trump said this month he hopes to discuss soybeans with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping, while also warning the US may halt a large share of imports from China. China is the world's largest buyer of soybeans and in recent months has sharply reduced purchases of US soy in favor of sourcing from Brazil and Argentina amid tariff and trade disputes. Trump has targeted China with a cascade of tariff orders on billions of dollars of imported goods that he says is aimed at narrowing a wide trade deficit, bringing back lost manufacturing and crippling the fentanyl trade. Washington and Beijing have had strained ties for years, especially with Trump in office. They have been at odds over issues like trade tariffs, technology, human rights, the origin of the COVID-19 pandemic, and geopolitical matters such as Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Ukraine.
President Donald Trump said on Tuesday he is very unhappy with Spain for refusing to raise its defense spending to 5%, calling the move disrespectful to NATO. Trump also threatened possible trade punishments, including tariffs, in retaliation.
I'm very unhappy with Spain. They're the only country that didn't raise up their number to 5%. Every other country in NATO raised up to 5%. And Spain is doing very well off our backs. So I'm not happy with Spain. Spain gets protection, and they know, look, they're sort of in the semi-middle of it, so they're going to get protected automatically. Even if you don't want to protect them, you're protecting them because of the way they're located. And I think what Spain did is a very bad thing for NATO. I think it's very unfair to NATO. It wouldn't matter if you said you're not going to protect them because they're pretty much protected. What are you going to do? Go through the other countries and let's go attack Spain, right? So I think what they did is not nice. I think it's very disrespectful to NATO. In fact, I was thinking about giving them trade punishment through tariffs because of what they did. And I may do that. I think unbelievably disrespectful. Spain, the only one out of all the countries in NATO, the only one that said that is Spain. And I think that's, I think they should be punished for that.
Artificial intelligence is poised to surpass human intelligence, but according to OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, this does not mean humanity loses its sense of purpose, happiness, or fulfillment. Speaking at GITEX Global 2025 on Tuesday, Altman reflects on the pace of progress, noting that his child born this year will likely never exceed AI in intelligence.
Yeah, I mean, on the first point, like, I have a kid that was born in 2025. I don't think he'll ever be smarter than AI. I don't think that'll get in the way of his happiness or fulfillment at all. It's sort of strange, and also sort of to him like it's the only world he'll ever know. And I think we've lost sight of what this says about the arrival of superintelligence and certainly the human condition.
On the subject of automation, Altman pointed out that while much attention is given to AI performing AI research, far less is said about a more profound shift, the prospect of physical self-replication. He said the industries rarely consider scenarios where data centers build other data centers or robots manufacture more robots, developments that could radically alter entire industries. Altman also called for foresight, suggesting these trends might not only reshape technology and industry, but also redefine humanity's relationship with intelligent systems. He warned the implications are vast and deserve thoughtful attention.
All right, please stay tuned with us as Niaga AWANI will be taking over by my colleague Nabilah, Khaleeda, and she will bring more update right after this.
Malaysia perlu bergerak daripada sekadar menjadi pusat pembuatan kepada sebuah negara pencipta teknologi chip sendiri yang mampu memberi nilai tambah lebih tinggi kepada dunia. Kerajaan bersetuju untuk mempertimbangkan agar pengusaha bot di Sabah dan Sarawak turut layak menerima subsidi petrol RON 95. Sabah kini memiliki 2 tapak rizab biosfera susulan pengiktirafan diberikan kepada kinabatangan oleh UNESCO.
Ini padang kita. Suku akhir Piala FA semakin sengit. Tekanan dan intensiti menguji setiap batang. Satu percubaan yang dilakukan. Namun tiada yang gentar. Demi kegemilangan, semangat juang terus membara hingga whistle penamat. Ini padang kita. Piala FA secara langsung di Astro Arena Bola dan Astro Go.
Alright, thank you for tuning into AWANI with me, Nabilah, Khaleeda. And right now, we're putting the spotlight on the future of our region's workforce through higher education, where we want to strengthen talent and skills development, especially when it comes to industry collaboration and also international partnerships. And happening right now in Kuala Lumpur, the EU-ASEAN Policy Dialogue on Higher Education brings together ministers, policymakers, and education leaders from across the regions under the theme of enhancing talent and skills development through internationalization. So it's all about collaboration, universities, governments and industries working together to equip our youth for the jobs of tomorrow. So joining me now to discuss further is His Excellency Jurang, the Ambassador of the European Union to ASEAN. Thank you for joining me and taking the time to speak with me today. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, and thank you for having me on Astro AWANI.
Amazing, amazing. So let's begin with the bigger picture. This policy dialogue highlights how internationalization and mobility can actually shape the region's talent pipeline. So from your perspective, from EU's perspective, why is higher education cooperation with ASEAN as a whole? It's important for the partnership and can actually foster and actually contribute to the building a more inclusive and also innovative, future-ready region when it comes to this talent.
Well, we're here in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and we're hosted by the Malaysian Chairmanship of ASEAN. One of the main achievements of the Malaysian Chairmanship of ASEAN is certainly the adoption of the ASEAN Community Vision 2045, which gives the strategic roadmap for the region for the next 20 years. Education is a part of the priorities, and for good reasons. Education is also a priority for the European Union, in particular through our flagship initiative, Global Gateway, which is an offer to invest in infrastructure in 5 key priority areas: transportation, digital, energy, research and education, and health. So naturally, education is a joint priority for ASEAN and the European Union. And it translates into the plan of action. We will implement the strategic partnership between ASEAN and the European Union for the years 2023-2027. This plan of action is a very thick document. It comprises 161 actions, so it's a very comprehensive document. But if you look carefully, education appears in 23 of these 161 actions. So certainly education has the top spot among the priorities which are shared by ASEAN and the European Union. And that is for good reasons, because education is an investment in people and it's an investment in the future.
So in essence, this kind of dialogue can actually prepare people not just for today's jobs, but also in the market, also industries in the future that's still emerging. So Your Excellency, a strong theme throughout this dialogue is synergy with industry. So Europe has long experience linking universities, industries and also employers through apprenticeships and also research and vocational training. So how does the EU foster this whole ecosystem, and what best practices could ASEAN adopt to better align graduate skills with also market and industry needs right now?
I think you're perfectly right to underline the centrality of technical vocational education and training. This is certainly the link which manages to bridge the gap between the world of studies, students in universities, and the world of labor, on the labor market and working with the industry. So TVET by definition is the part of higher education where the industry or the labor market is the most involved. And we're very happy that with the European Union, through our SCOPE Higher Education Project, which stands for the Sustainable Connectivity Package in Higher Education, we managed to put the emphasis on TVET, Technical Vocational Education and Training, as one of the 3 priorities for the project, because it's what can best prepare students, young professionals, to find their place and due recognition of their skills and talents on the labor market and find placement in the industry. And for the industry, it's also a good investment to groom those young professionals so that the skills and talents they develop are adapted to their requirements and needs.
And Malaysia definitely look up to EU when it comes to fostering the EU talent, the TVET talents here. So let's talk about how we can actually close the skills gap, especially in fast-growing areas like semiconductors and also green technology, which is a vital part of ASEAN's green manufacturing ecosystem. So what role can education policy or international cooperation play in preparing the workforce of these strategic sectors, and how can both EU and ASEAN actually work together for future-proof skills of this talent in these fast-moving industries?
Well, the support of the European Union to ASEAN has not started with the Scope HE project. We had many generations of projects before the Scope HE education project, which is a current project. But if we look into the past, our focus has been in two directions. The first one is to allow internationalization of education, which means a particular effort on the mobility of university students to allow them to study abroad, to enlarge their horizon and diversify their experience, but also the mobility of faculty members, because it's important that people who teach and not only people who study have this international experience. So we managed to do that through projects which were there in place between ASEAN and the European Union before the current project Scope HE. We also managed to do that through Erasmus, which is certainly the best known project in the world for the mobility of university students, but also the mobility of faculty members and partnerships between universities. Our focus has not only been on the mobility of university or faculty members, it has also been on the development of dual degrees or joint degrees. One of the issues people face when they move overseas on the labor market is difficulties with the recognition of their qualifications. So to that effect, the mutual recognition of degrees, qualifications, is certainly a cornerstone, which is the prerequisite for the internationalization of the labor force. We have quite a long and complete experience in that regard in the European Union, because our labor market has been integrated through the common market, the single market, which is a market where not only goods and services and capitals can move freely, but also workers. So to that effect, it's important for the workers to have a recognition of their qualifications through their university degrees. So this is naturally one of the key priorities for our action with ASEAN, and I think we're progressing well. I think the most successful part of Erasmus is the Erasmus dual master degree, joint master degree, which gives a recognition of a degree here in the ASEAN region, but also a degree which is recognized in the European Union.
Indeed, mobility has been a cornerstone for EU's education philosophy. And it's not just building skills, but also trust and collaboration across cultures as well. So if we think beyond formal education, the workforce is also changing. So there's a growing emphasis on lifelong learning, and digital literacy is now the basic requirement. So how can both regions, EU and also ASEAN, ensure that upskilling and reskilling opportunities are accessible, and not only to university graduates, but also meet career professionals and workers affected by technological change, also advancements, and also adapting automation, also AI?
Well, the world is changing, and it's changing quickly. I came here in Malaysia for the first ever ASEAN Artificial Intelligence Summit in Malaysia. So the phenomenon that you have been describing of new technologies gearing up very quickly and changing our lives, and not only our professional lives but our everyday lives, is certainly a phenomenon that we fully recognize. When it comes to education, I think the way forward is to recognize that phenomenon and to address it. Let me just name two of the projects that we are supporting. One is the Global Gateway flagship in Cambodia, which is about strengthening human capacity in the digital and green transition. So it's addressing exactly what you're saying. The other one is a project which is more recent, because it was launched under the Malaysian chairmanship of ASEAN earlier this year, during the first ASEAN summit in May here in Kuala Lumpur. And it's the establishment of a Center of Excellence for the Green Transition, with a focus on micro, small and medium-sized enterprises. So of course, qualifications, skills and talent will be a part of this.
Amazing. So when we talk about this dialogue, it's not just about sharing ideas, but it's also about aiming to actually turn ideas into action. So from your standpoint, Your Excellency, what would it be a successful EU-ASEAN higher education partnership look like, and how can we actually ensure that today's discussion lead to a tangible or successful benefits for students, institutions, and also employers alike? And for right now, we've seen two strengthening collaboration in research and innovation, especially through Horizon Europe and recent academic connectivity grants. So how can both regions, EU and ASEAN, ensure that policy discussions here translate into a real long-term impact as a whole?
Well, the starting point is exactly what we're doing today. It's a policy dialogue which brings together people from both regions, from the European Union and from ASEAN, to allow discussion among practitioners and experts on higher education on how to improve things. This policy dialogue is a unique opportunity also for networking, and this is certainly the first stepping stone towards a closer cooperation and partnership. You need to have a good network to develop cooperation and partnership, and this is, I think, the main added value of meetings such as today. It allows people to come together, to compare experience and to exchange on best practices so that they can take that away and implement it in their own setup. When it comes to building a system for the future and how we can translate that into concrete outcomes, I think we just have to go by the numbers, because the numbers never lie. So for Erasmus, we've had over the past 10 years 13,000 students from ASEAN region studying in Europe with the support of the Erasmus project, and in the other direction 7,000 of university students from the European Union studied in ASEAN with the assistance of the Erasmus project. When it comes to research, because as you mentioned, this world is changing very rapidly, so we also need to anticipate the changes for tomorrow, so that requires research and development in technology and innovation. So this is where our Horizon Europe, the European Union research project, kicks in. This is the single largest and best funded public research project in the world for the years 2021-2027. It benefits from a budget of 96 billion euros. So you can look anywhere in the world, you will never find a better funded or larger public research project. It is a project which does not only benefit companies or research organizations in the European Union, but also in the rest of the world. So in the ASEAN region, if we go by the numbers, the Horizon Europe initiative supported 90 projects involving 109 research institutions across the ASEAN region, and that represents an investment of 10.6 million euros.
So after all, ultimately all this effort, internationalization, skills alignment, also research cooperation are about empowering young people. So finally, Your Excellency, for the many students and young graduates watching right now, what message would you share with them, especially ASEAN's next generation, as they step into an increasingly global and competitive job market?
It's just to take advantage of all the opportunities that are offered to you. This is a competitive world, but this is also a kind world. Partners like the European Union have schemes and projects in place to make sure that you can take advantage of the opportunity of studying overseas, with scholarship projects, with a network of universities, with the assistance of your faculty members and overseas study abroad project in your universities. So if you are a young student in the ASEAN region and you're looking for opportunities to study abroad, please look at Europe.
Amazing. There was His Excellency Suji Rosim, Ambassador of the European Union to ASEAN. Thank you so much for your insight. And what's clear is that higher education isn't just about academic excellence, it's about equipping people with the right mindset, right skills, and also mobility to thrive in a faster changing world, not just to find jobs, but to shape the industries of tomorrow. So thank you once again for joining us. And that's all for now. I'm Nabilah Khaleeda. Thanks for watching.
Dibawakan oleh penaja utama jelajah jiwa SME, Unified Business, rakan digital pilihan anda.
the superpowers move, the ground shifts. Power isn't just about might anymore. It's about narratives, networks, negotiation. We go beyond the noise to deliver laser-focused analysis on how power moves and what it means for the world. This is AWANI International, reporting the shifts in power affairs shaping the world.
Baru masuk pemain dah buat hal lah kau.
Tak sangka Victoria tu baik gila. Kau saja nak sabar aku kan? Oh. Oi, boleh tahu tak? The girls either have it or they don't. Wang masuk. Weh, kau nak belah macam tu je?
Generasi Perfect 10. Stream episod terbaru eksklusif on demand dan 9 malam di Astro.
Cepatlah. Wi-Fi sangkut lah. Wi-Fi sangkut-sangkut? Jom kasih kencang.
Stream cerita hebat Didi and Friends. Wi-Fi kencang untuk pelbagai peranti. Percuma router edisi terhad Didi and Friends. Stream Didi and Friends Storytime tak sangkut-sangkut. Dapatkan Astro Fiber sekarang.
Di era digital, pemasaran bukan hanya tentang penjualan semata-mata. Penceritaan menarik jadi kekuatan dalam membina hubungan perniagaan, tingkat pengetahuan, perkasakan perniagaan anda. Saksikan segmen JWSME dalam program AWANI Pagi dan Niaga AWANI setiap Isnin hingga Khamis di saluran 501. Dibawakan oleh penaja utama jelajah JWSME, Unify Business, rakan digital pilihan anda.
Cepatlah. Wi-Fi sangkut lah. Wi-Fi sangkut-sangkut? Jom kasih kencang.
Stream cerita hebat Didi and Friends. Wi-Fi kencang untuk pelbagai peranti. Percuma router edisi terhad Didi and Friends. Stream Didi and Friends Storytime tak sangkut-sangkut. Dapatkan Astro Fiber sekarang.
Di era digital, pemasaran bukan hanya tentang penjualan semata-mata. Penceritaan menarik jadi kekuatan dalam membina hubungan perniagaan, tingkat pengetahuan, perkasakan perniagaan anda. Saksikan segmen JWSME dalam program AWANI Pagi dan Niaga AWANI setiap Isnin hingga Khamis di saluran 501. Dibawakan oleh penaja utama jelajah JWSME, Unify Business, rakan digital pilihan anda.
Kementerian Pertahanan sedang giat melaksanakan inisiatif Work-Based Learning WBL sebagai pengiktirafan terhadap pengalaman dan kemahiran melalui pemetaan kerjaya kepada kurikulum akademik. Di samping itu, Kementerian Pertahanan melalui Kertas Putih Pertahanan turut memberikan keutamaan dan komitmen terhadap inisiatif pembangunan modal insan dan sosioekonomi kepada bakal pesara dan veteran ATM. Ini termasuk penyediaan program latihan dan peluang kerjaya kedua setelah tamat perkhidmatan, dan perhebat bertanggungjawab merancang, mengurus dan melaksanakan program latihan peralihan kepada anggota ATM yang akan bersara bertujuan untuk membantu mereka menyesuaikan diri dengan kehidupan selepas menamatkan perkhidmatan. Secara purata, sekitar 5,000 anggota diberikan latihan peralihan setiap tahun. Sebagai penghubung kerjaya kedua, veteran berhebat turut melaksanakan beberapa program. Antaranya adalah Kerjaya Perwira, Program Recognitions of Prior Experiential Learning, ARPEL, Veteran MyWira, Program Pemerkasaan Usahawan Veteran ATM atau dikenali sebagai PUVET, dan Program Pensijilan Kompetensi Kemahiran dan juga Green Card, dan Program Pentauliahan Pensijilan Juruteknik Bertauliah. Itu saja jawapannya.
Kelang.
Terima kasih kepada Timbalan Menteri atas jawapan tadi. Soalan tambahan saya, apakah kementerian akan memberi keutamaan kepada syarikat-syarikat yang melantik bekas anggota tentera bagi tujuan pengurusan atau penyelenggaraan aset kementerian seperti bangunan, kenderahan, senjata dan peralatan lain dan tidak lagi menggunakan syarikat yang melantik pekerja asing?
Terima kasih kepada Yang Berhormat Kelang di atas soalan tambahan yang dikemukakan. Sebenarnya kalau kita lihat melalui bajet kita yang baru diumumkan oleh Yang Berhormat Perdana Menteri, memang Kementerian Pertahanan diberikan kelebihan melaksanakan program protege. Kalau kita lihat sebelum daripada ini, kita diberikan peluang untuk melaksanakan program protege. Jadi protege melalui veteran Angkatan Tentera ini memang kita akan sasarkan kepada industri-industri yang terkait dengan, terutamanya industri yang terkait dengan industri pertahanan kita. Itu yang pertama. Yang kedua adalah, kalau kita lihat adalah industri-industri yang secara umum terkait dengan Kementerian Pertahanan itu sendiri. Jadi kita tahu bahawa bajet melalui protege ini, kalau kita lihat melalui kontrak-kontrak ataupun tender-tender yang kita keluarkan, sebahagian daripada itu adalah melalui ICP. Dan melalui ICP itulah, Industrial Collaboration Program, itulah yang kita gunakan bajet ini untuk kita bawa veteran kita kepada industri. Dan secara tidak langsung industri akan dapat manfaat daripada itu melalui perkhidmatan ataupun keusahawanan yang disediakan oleh anggota veteran kita itu. Itu saja jawapan.
Terima kasih Puan Dipertua. Ada dua soalan daripada saya. Yang pertama, lebih 1,000 anggota veteran telah ditipu oleh pemaju perumahan yang mana mereka membeli rumah tetapi rumah itu tak siap. Dan mereka terpaksa membayar pinjaman tu sampai sekarang. Saya dah pergi kepada LPPSA berjumpa dengan pengarah dia dan beliau menyatakan dari segi loan tetap mereka kena bayar. Tetapi dia kata boleh pergi berjumpa dengan Jeff, dia kata. Minta Jeff tolong bantu. Jadi apakah bentuk bantuan yang Mendes buat untuk menyelesaikan masalah ini? Yang kedua,